Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide. Today we're doing an in-depth check of the smallest of the new Gen 3 series that came out from Boox, and that's the Boox Poke 3. This is a dedicated reader, not a note-taking device, and it's coming here to try and replace the Poke 2, which is a very young device because it came out in, I think, April or May of this year. So, plus they look pretty much almost identical, except that this gray line is a little bit different color. Other than that, everything else is the same. So what's the deal here? Let's check it out and see what's what. And here is the Boox Poke 3, the smallest of the whole new updated range of Boox e-ink devices. So unlike the Max Lumi Note Air Note 3 and Nova 3, Poke 3 is a dedicated e-reader device. As such, it only has touch capabilities, and also it is a 6-inch device, so it has a slightly different user interface, but it's exactly the same as the Poke 2, which it kind of replaces. In my mind, my Poke 2 is still pretty much like a brand new device because I got it less than half a year ago, or maybe precisely half a year ago. It's a little bit strange to have it kind of replaced with Poke 3. However, yeah, let's check it out. And I'm not gonna go too much into depth because everything is really covered in depth on my Poke 2 review. So since we are having pretty much the identical type of device, I mean, the design is exactly the same, it just has a darker line here. The form factor is exactly the same, so all of the positives and the things that make me really love my Poke 2 automatically transfer to Poke 3. One thing that's actually important and meaningful difference between Poke 2 and Poke 3 is the fact that 2 came with the micro USB, 3 comes with the USB-C. So that is something that could be important to some users, and it's nice actually to have it standardized so that you don't have to go fumbling around for this standard cable, that standard cable, etc, etc. But overall, physical properties exactly the same as Poke 2. So yeah, it's an excellent device. With a little caveat, I do personally prefer the original design. I prefer this color more than the dark one here because it offered for a nicer contrast and it kind of matched the screen background a little bit better for me. However, I guess that's just a personal preference, really irrelevant in the grander scheme of things. As far as the specifications go, well, it's the same story like with Note 3 versus Note 2 and Nova 3 versus Nova 2. It has been upgraded with the newer octa-core CPU, which is more power efficient, or supposed to be. It has the same amount of 2 GB of RAM, however, it's also been upgraded to LPDDR4 class of RAM, which is more efficient and faster, but it also supports the exact same 32 GB of ROM eMMC as the Poke 2 has. Now the next in line, the big difference is that it runs Android 10. So same story as with Nova 2, even though I've updated this guide on OS 3, which has some of the functionalities or most of the functionalities that are introduced in OS 3, it still runs Android 9. This is not the case on the Poke 3, it's running on Android 10. And the other difference is that, like the Nova 3 and Note 3, it also supports analog audio as well. Everything else is exactly the same, so not much to talk about there. Poke 3 sports the 6-inch HD Carta screen with a true anti-glare glass flat cover lens. As you can see, it's the same type of anti-glare that you have on the other devices, and it's the same type that you have on the Poke 2. So very much identical type of performance, and I've been using my Poke 2 and I've never had a problem with the glare at all, especially because you also have that Frontlight that you can fine-tune, and then it works very nicely. The readability is as crisp and as nice as it was on Poke 2. So even though it is a very, very small format, I mean, just for reference sake, look how tiny I have made this font here. So that's something that you absolutely have to take into consideration when buying a 6-inch type of reader. But on the Boox platform, that's really not a problem because of all of the formatting options and the capabilities. It's an extremely capable and versatile and flexible reader. For those people who ask, like, okay, most of us who are transferring from Kindle or anything like that, we want to see the Kindle app, that is also going to be covered in the big Boox guide series, not in the device itself review. Also, if you are interested in that kind of stuff, again, check out the Max Lumi, because everything has been covered there, with the addition of some of the things have also been covered in the review for Note Air. So I can't really repeat myself so many times because simply too many products from Boox have been released nowadays, and they are all using the same kind of thing, so it would be kind of ridiculous to repeat myself all of the time. So just check out the other videos and you will be set. As for the performance of the screen itself, it's extremely good. I really do like it. So as the rest of the range, very crisp, very sharp, and again, that Neo Reader capability to separately adjust contrast of the image and the text itself. You can really fine-tune it to whatever experience that you may want. However, as Poke 3 goes, excellent readability and excellent type of flexibility on the screen as well. Frontlight on Poke 3 is really good. It feels that it's very uniform, which is not a surprise because it's much easier to actually get a uniform Frontlight on a 6-inch device than it is on a 13.3 inch display. So yeah, like the rest of the range, it has dual Frontlight control, so you have your orange light and you have the blue light as a separate control, or if you want, you can link them and then adjust them that way. This is like halfway type of value of the front light, and it's quite pleasant. And of course, you can turn it off or go very low just to kind of tint the screen a tiny little bit depending on your personal preferences. My overall impression is that it's a very nice front light, the same as it was on the Poke 2, so nothing new to report there. The battery test performed on the Poke 3, it's actually the same thing. I load up the big book and then I put it on slideshow, and it slides automatically, flips pages every 20 seconds, and then have different conditions, measure out the battery, average out, and see what are the expected results. So under normal conditions, which is Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth off, and front light at around 50% mark, Poke 3 was spending around 2.5% of battery life per hour, with expected projected battery lifetime to be, under those conditions, 40 hours. Surprisingly, when I switched to the low consumption test, which is Wi-Fi off, Bluetooth off, and the front light completely off, the battery consumption was 2.29 per hour, or basically expected total of 43 hours. And that one surprised me because usually all of the other devices have a huge bump in battery life between front light on or front light off. To me, this is an indication that something is going on in the background of this guy, and maybe it's not optimized fully. So maybe there's like a memory process or something like that that's churning away and it's not supposed to, and it's kind of draining the battery a little bit more than it's supposed to, because usually the front light is the one that's the culprit, but here everything was off. The difference was really not that big between the normal consumption and low consumption test, so it'll be interesting to see if this actually improves over the coming updates. And then finally we had the high consumption test, which is like everything on, Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth on, and front light whoop, all the way to the maximum. And here we had like 9.38% per hour, and with the battery lifetime expectancy of around 10 hours, which is good, but still it just shows consistently how power hungry that front light is once you go from 50% or towards the 100. First of all, I never use it like that. I use it like in the lower first quarter of intensity. I barely ever have a need for more than that. The front light is a very big battery consumer, so be mindful of that when configuring your device. Overall, the battery lifetime is great, but yeah, with that little question mark, like why was the low consumption test not better? So it looks like something is a little bit like that. And that warranted for me an additional test, so I back-to-back tested Poke 2 and Poke 3 under the same conditions, and didn't want any syncing processes or anything, so I turned off Wi-Fi and I turned off Bluetooth, and I had the Frontlight to the maximum just to kind of see what happens. And they were similar, but Poke 2 was a little bit better, and that shouldn't be. So again, that's something that shouldn't be, because the OS is more power efficient, the Android 10 is more power efficient, and the CPU and memory components inside are supposed to be and are more power efficient than the previous generation of devices. So again, an indication that, yeah, it's a young platform, and hopefully some of the new fixes, and the fixes are coming very, very regularly, so some of the new fixes will most likely address this issue and probably improve it even further. As far as performance benchmarking goes, yeah, I just ran the standard series of tests, or tried to, but I couldn't get the Geekbench 5 to complete on either Poke 2 or Poke 3. I have no idea why. Theoretically speaking, they should be the exact same performance, because they, or a platform, because they have the same CPU and the same RAM and the same type of storage. But for whatever reason, the Geekbench 5 simply couldn't complete on either of them, and none of the scores, yeah, it couldn't just simply complete, but it was completing normally on Nova 3, Nova 2 and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know why, but no scores there, so it's like a DNF for both of them as far as Geekbench 5 goes. On to the more important one, which is the PC Mark work score, and the same thing applies here. The PC Mark is not optimized for Android 10, so I'm expecting to see huge discrepancies in the storage score, which you clearly can see already, as it was with Nova 3. But more importantly, I'm more interested in the work score itself, because it just shows this real world type of scenario: copying text, pasting text, loading files, unloading files, changing this, flipping pages, browsing, all that kind of stuff. So real work stuff is actually tested, and as expected, you can see that the Poke 3 is quite a lot more dominant than the Poke 2 was. So much so that it's basically neck and neck with the Note 3. And you can see, curiously enough, that it outperforms Nova 3, which again shows that, yeah, the young platform and optimization processes for each of the devices, it's still not complete. They're still kind of lining those up, but I'm fairly certain that, as you can see, that the Note 3, Note Air and Poke 3 in this case are neck and neck, basically equal in the work score. Yeah, Nova 3 is gonna get there as well, but excellent work performance score from this little guy. I mean, really, really outstanding. Now, the storage score is excellent score as well, disregarding the differences between Poke 2 and Poke 3, simply because Poke 2 is running Android 9, PC Mark is optimized for Android 9, and Poke 3 is running Android 10, and PC Mark is not optimized for Android 10. So, of course, this discrepancy makes sense. However, what I'm interested in is how does the Poke 3 storage performance compare to its other Gen 3 devices that are on Android 10, and you can see that it's neck and neck with Note Air. Very consistent, almost identical, which is to be expected, so excellent performance all around as far as this little guy goes. And then finally we have the Passmark performance test, where things are a little bit kind of strange and weird. This one always shows the discrepancies. So this is a purely synthetic test, but it's a very interesting one for me, because it dissects everything down into these nice categories where you can dial in with precision to understand which category is inconsistent or different, or wherein lies a potential issue. So here we get an interesting result where consistently both CPU performance and the memory performance on Poke 3 is lower than Poke 2. The bigger thing is that the difference between the CPU performance of Poke 3 and the rest of its brothers and sisters, such as Nova 3, Note Air and Note 3, which are all almost identical, we have like huge discrepancy between the Poke 3 and the rest of the range in CPU performance, and especially in memory performance. The memory performance is way down. So that's again an indication a young platform needs optimization, and I expect that these numbers are gonna shoot back up once next update or the update after that, or whenever the updates come, that will actually address these issues. So yeah, but currently as it is, yeah, there are some discrepancies, even though you can't really see them in the real world performance. If you remember, you can see in the work performance, you can't feel this discrepancy, but it's there. It's definitely there. Same thing happens with the disk read. Like with the Nova 3, the Poke 3 has the same issue. Very slow disk read speed compared to the rest of the platforms, but the disk write speed is right in line where it should be. Again, something that will probably get optimized and fixed in future updates. So, and a very similar story goes with the 2D graphics core. Poke 3 runs a super small resolution, so theoretically speaking, it should be the best performing 3D device, yet it's not. So we do have a discrepancy there as well, because the same CPU and the same type of RAM should be rendering faster, because it's rendering least amount of pixels than any of the devices there. So it should have been highest, but it's not. So again, across the board, I think Passmark performance tests shows that the OS 3 and the Android 10 have not been completely kind of optimized all the way on the Poke 3. I'm looking forward to actually seeing how that gets improved over time, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to happen. And just yet another little update on Poke 3 this time from the future, because since the time I was filming all the reviews and all that kind of stuff, there was, I think, at least 3 more updates. And yeah, I updated last night and then rerun the benchmarks, and of course the same story like with Nova 3, the performance discrepancies are gone. So now Poke 3 CPU, memory, and 2D and 3D graphics cores are all in line, and they are kind of performing normally. The only thing that's still a little bit of a discrepancy is the disk read speed, but as we can clearly see, the tendency is that these things are being improved with every single update. So that's an excellent thing to see here on the Poke 3 as well. So yeah, basically the situation as it is now is that Poke 3 is a lot more powerful than the Poke 2, and is in line with CPU and memory performance with the rest of the devices of the Gen 3 version of the Boox devices. Excellent updating practices that they are showing here. Now, as far as the OS differences and functionalities go, I do highly encourage you to actually watch my Poke 2 in-depth review, because everything is covered in really in-depth details in those videos, and basically 100% from that video transfers onto the Poke 3 of the functionality, plus you have a little bit more because it's a version 3. However, one caveat, because it's a 6-inch screen, of course you don't have split screen. It's simply too small for any kind of split screen, but you are able to screencast, which is excellent, something that I really do like. And you also have these kinds of shortcuts that have been added in the version 3, like the navigation ball to turn it on and off directly from here, which is very helpful on the Poke 3. Then in the apps you have the push read functionality, which is like the transfer books push functionality from before, but it pushes the entire article from the web, including all of the media files and everything like that. And of course, it has a Neo browser, which is new, the calendar memo, the screensaver functionality that are different, and the recorder, and all of these kinds of things. And all of that, again, is covered in Max Lumi review. So even though Max Lumi is the biggest one, it does apply to the smallest member of the family, because it's running pretty much the exact same operating system. Now, as I said, the big Boox guide series is in development, and it's something that I'm working on, and that's something that's going to be applicable to all of the Boox devices from that are running the OS 3 series. Stay tuned for that, because that's going to be your go-to thing to actually learn how to use your Boox device properly. Until then, you have the Poke 2 review and the Max Lumi review. Combine those and you'll be able to find most of the stuff that you're looking for on your Poke 3. Alright, so it's time to sum up and finalize the in-depth review of the Boox Poke 3. And as usual, let's start with the cons. Android platform has a learning curve to it, and it does require from the user in order to use the maximum out of it and to get the maximum benefit from it, it does require a little bit of patience, effort, and interest basically to learn it. But as you do over time, this thing that's a con slowly slowly kind of moves over to the Pro as you kind of learn how to use it, and as you learn how to utilize the flexibility, versatility, and the power that is actually offered to you, especially in such a tiny device like this one. It's just, as an e-reader, it's simply amazing. So yeah, but definitely something to keep in mind. Finally, this is a con that's probably just my own, simply because I own Poke 2 from when it got out, and I love it and I use it. I have been using it daily since then. It's always underneath my pillow, and whenever I go to sleep, it's just like whoop, and then I continue reading whatever it is that I'm reading. So I absolutely love it, and I'm in daily contact with it for months now. And for me personally, it's a little bit too early for it to be replaced, and that device is so damn good that I was just wondering, like, what the hell can this thing do to actually replace it? It just feels a little bit too early for Poke 2 to be replaced by the next generation of device, which is so similar to it. That's all. And now on to the pros of this little guy. So first of all, it has a USB-C with the OTG capability, so that's a really big plus. I absolutely loved the design and the build quality of the Poke 2. It's different than the rest of them. It has different type of rounded edges, and there's enough differences here that make me prefer this type of design and profile vastly to the Max Lumi Note 3 and Nova 3 rounded standard type of tablet device. So for me, this is far sexier, and I really love this type of profile, so a big pro for me. Another huge pro, of course, is the Android 10, far more modern, efficient, and lasting type of operating system. So it makes it a very current and hopefully lasting type of a device. So that's a big pro as well. And don't forget, even on this little guy, you have screencasting. So should you choose to, you can screencast from your Poke 3 onto a Zoom call, onto a projector, onto another PC screen. It doesn't matter. So that's a really cool thing to have. As a reader device, the performance and just the specifications of these things are like insane. Software side of things, you have the Neo reader, which, as I said, for me, it's one of the best and my favorite reader. You also have Kindle, Kobo, Google Play Books, or even if you want some of your dedicated apps that work on Android for renting out from a library, virtual library books and things like that. You have audiobooks. I mean, it's just an amazing little e-reader. I think the easiest way to sum this up is that, it just rocks. It really rocks. I'm not too happy that it's here, simply because I love the Poke 2 so much, because, it's just an amazing device. But if I am being objective, and I am trying to be objective, if you don't already own a Poke 2 and you're in the market for getting a 6-inch e-reader, just a proper e-reader, because remember, no note-taking on this one, it's a complete no-brainer. Yes, it's pricey at $180. It's really pricey. Probably the priciest of the bunch for the 6-inch readers. But, you get the most powerful one, most versatile one, and you get all of the libraries that you can think of, and it's a sexy package. It's looking awesome. It's just, I don't know. I mean, as awesome as Poke 2 was, Poke 3 is as awesome as that, and a little bit better. But he's trying to replace my Poke 2. However, if you already own a Poke 2, should you upgrade to Poke 3? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not gonna. That's up to you, but I'm not gonna do that, because simply there's not enough differences there for me to kind of warrant that type of a change. Personally, I love the old lighter gray on the Poke 2 a lot more, and it would feel like a betrayal. I mean, the new device needs to offer something a lot more for me to abandon the old one that I love so much. So I'm gonna be sticking with my Poke 2, but if I didn't have it, I would be buying this for sure. Alright, so that's it. We've completed the whole journey of the new Boox series. So we've covered Boox, Max Lumi, Note 3, Max Air, Nova 3, and Poke 3. Quite a lot of stuff to go through. I'm also preparing a big Boox guide series, which is going to be a series of many shorter videos, much shorter videos, which is like tutorials, how-tos, tips and tricks, and basically like an educational side of things, how to best get up to speed with your Boox device. And it's going to apply to many devices, all the Gen 2 devices and all the Gen 3 devices, basically every device that has received the OS 3 update, and most of the stuff that I'm going to be showing is going to be applicable on OS 2 XXX type of versions. So yeah, chances are that if you own a Boox device, that series is going to be beneficial to you, and I'm going to be covering a whole range of topics, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell to get notified when the other videos are coming up. And also check out the channel itself. It's organized into playlists per device so that you can actually much more easily find what it is that you're looking for, the content that's related to a device and things like that. I have a My Deep Guide page on Patreon, so if you do like what I do here, then you can consider maybe becoming an official patron. Not only will you support the platform and help it grow and become even better, but you will also get periodical behind the scenes types of videos that are kind of bloggy, vloggy, and yeah, just kind of fun stuff to as a special thank you for the support that you're showing. And for all the existing patrons, thank you so much. It's really, really awesome what you do. All right, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.